The medical scanner beeped 3 times, paused, then beeped 7 more times in what I can only describe as mechanical confusion. Dr. Venthera pressed her primary manipulator against the display screen, her secondary eyes narrowing to slits. "Run it again," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone that meant someone, somewhere, had made a terrible mistake, and she was about to find out who. I stood behind her, clutching my datapad like it might shield me from whatever was about to happen. As the junior xenobiologist on orbital station Kepler-7, my job usually involved cataloging microbes. Not whatever this was turning into. The scanner ran again. Same result. The holographic display flickered, showing a double helix that seemed to argue with itself about which category it belonged in. "Impossible," Venthara muttered, which, coming from someone with 4 doctoral degrees and 200 years of experience, was not something you wanted to hear. The genetic markers are contradictory. Apex predator physiology, prey species behavioral triggers, endurance hunting adaptations, panic response neurology. It's like looking at a biological paradox that somehow learned to walk upright and form governments. The human in question, one Marcus Webb, sat on the examination platform with the kind of patience that probably should have been our first warning. He wore the standard civilian jumpsuit issued to all new arrivals, and he'd been incredibly polite about the whole mandatory medical screening process. Too polite, maybe. In my experience, apex predators didn't say please and thank you quite that much. "Is everything all right?" Marcus asked, tilting his head in a gesture that, according to my xenopsychology training, indicated curiosity without aggression. Harmless. Friendly, even. The scanner beeped again, this time in what I swear sounded like a warning tone. Venthera's dorsal spines rippled. A Thenari stress response. "Mr. Webb, I need to ask you some questions. For scientific purposes, you understand." "Sure thing, Doc." He smiled, showing teeth. Flat teeth in front, sharp ones in back. The scanner helpfully highlighted this anatomical nightmare in pulsing red. "Your species. Humans. You evolved on a planet classified as what, exactly?" Marcus scratched his jaw, another supposedly non-threatening gesture that somehow made my survival instincts scream. "Earth! I mean, it's a Class M world. Pretty standard from what I've read. Bit on the heavy side gravity-wise, maybe. Why?" Venthera pulled up the preliminary planetary assessment report. Her tertiary eyes widened as she read. "Heavy side. Your world has 1.3 times the galactic standard gravity. Your atmosphere contains 21% free oxygen. Your predator-to-prey ratio is..." She stopped, reading the number again. "This can't be correct." "What's it say?" I asked, immediately regretting opening my mouth. "It says there are regions on Earth where the predator population exceeds the prey population. Multiple apex predators competing for resources. Megafauna that hunt in packs. Solitary hunters with bite forces that exceed industrial hydraulics. And somehow humans became the dominant species." Marcus shrugged, a gesture that involved raising both shoulder joints in a display of nonchalance. "Yeah, we had to get creative. You know, teamwork, tools, that sort of thing." The scanner started displaying new information, this time analyzing his cardiovascular system. I watched the numbers climb and felt my own circulatory system consider a full shutdown. "Your heart rate," Venthera said slowly, "is currently 48 beats per cycle. That's within your species' resting parameters?" "Little low, actually," Marcus admitted. "I've been training for a marathon, so it's dropped a bit." "Training for a marathon." She tapped her manipulator against the screen. "That's a long-distance running event, correct? How long?" 42 kilometers, give or take." The silence in the medical bay stretched out like taffy. Somewhere, an air recycler hummed. A cooling system clicked on. Venthera's spines went completely flat, which I'd learned meant she was either extremely calm or about to have a complete psychological breakdown. "You run," she said, her voice very quiet now. For 42 kilometers. Voluntarily. For recreation. Some folks do hundreds of kilometers. Marcus offered helpfully. Ultra marathons. Not really my thing, but my friend Jenny does them. She finished a 200-kilometer race last year. Took her about 30 hours, but she made it. I checked my translator implant, certain it had malfunctioned. It hadn't. He really said 30 hours. Of continuous running. For fun. Venthara turned to her workstation and started pulling up files, her manipulators moving across multiple screens simultaneously. I need to review the human admission protocols. I need to speak with Station Commander Plex immediately. Did I do something wrong? Marcus asked. And here's the thing that really got me. He sounded genuinely concerned, like he was worried about causing trouble. This creature, whose genetic code apparently couldn't decide if it should be running away or chasing things down, was worried about being impolite. No, Mr. Webb, you've been very cooperative. I just need to consult with my colleagues. If you could wait here for a moment. She grabbed my shoulder with enough force to activate my pain receptors and hauled me into the corridor. The door sealed behind us with a soft hiss. Call Commander Plex, she said, her voice pitched low and urgent. Tell him we have a situation, then pull up every file we have on human physiology, psychology, and evolutionary history. Something is very, very wrong with the preliminary assessment. Wrong how? Her primary eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my exoskeleton itch. Assistant Krell, in my 2 centuries of xenobiological research, I have examined thousands of species from across the known galaxy. I have seen parasites that hijack neural systems. I have cataloged predators that can camouflage as inanimate objects. I once spent 3 years studying a species that reproduces by quantum entanglement. She paused, her breathing apparatus flaring. I have never, not once, encountered a species with this particular combination of physiological traits. Which traits specifically? All of them. The endurance of a pursuit predator, the pattern recognition of an ambush hunter, the social cooperation of a pack species, the tool use of a scavenger, the threat assessment capabilities of prey animals, the throwing accuracy that suggests specialized neural architecture for projectile hunting, and somehow, wrapped up in all of this, a psychological profile that presents as friendly, cooperative, and fundamentally non-threatening. I felt my respiratory systems kick into high gear. So what are they? Predators pretending to be prey? Prey that evolved predatory characteristics? Neither. Both. I don't know. She pressed her manipulator against the wall, steadying herself. But I do know this. Every species in the galactic community fits into established categories. Herbivore, carnivore, omnivore with predatory lean, omnivore with prey lean. We have protocols, behavioral models, interaction guidelines. Humans don't fit any of them. Through the door's observation window, I could see Marcus sitting patiently on the examination platform, looking at something on his personal device, probably reading. Maybe watching entertainment media, doing completely normal, non-threatening civilian things. The scanner, still running its analysis, beeped again. This time it sounded almost apologetic. Get the commander, Venthara repeated. I need authorization to run a full evolutionary history analysis. I want to know everything about how humans became what they are. Because right now, looking at this data, I can only come to one conclusion. Which is, she turned to look back through the window at Marcus, who had noticed us watching and given a friendly wave. That Earth, she said slowly, isn't a Class M world at all. It's a death world. And somehow, impossibly, humans evolved not to survive it, but to dominate it. And they did it by becoming something that shouldn't exist. A species that hunts like a predator, thinks like prey, cooperates like a hive mind, and competes like solitary killers, all at the same time. The scanner beeped one final time. The display showed a simple message in standard galactic script. Classification error, please consult supervisor. I pulled out my communicator to call the commander, wondering how exactly you explain to your superior officer that the friendly human sitting in your medical bay might be the most dangerous thing on the station, and he doesn't even know it. Inside the exam room, Marcus stretched his arms over his head, loosening muscles that could apparently carry him through 42 kilometers of continuous running. He yawned, showing those flat, sharp teeth again, and checked the time. "Everything okay out there?" he called through the door, his voice carrying nothing but polite concern. Venthura's spines shivered. "Just fine, Mr. Webb. We'll be right with you." She looked at me, all 4 eyes wide. "When you call Commander Plex, tell him to bring Security Chief Drax, and possibly a xenopsychologist, and maybe someone from the diplomatic corps who specializes in first contact protocols." "This isn't first contact," I said. "Humans have been part of the galactic community for 6 cycles already." "Yes," Venthura agreed, her voice distant. "They have. And somehow, in all that time, nobody noticed what they actually are. Nobody ran the deep genetic analysis. Nobody asked the right questions." She paused, mandibles clicking in agitation. "We let them integrate. We gave them access to our stations, our trade routes, our databases. We treated them like just another species of friendly omnivores who happen to be decent at engineering and diplomacy. And they're not? Oh, they are friendly. The scans confirm their psychological profiles, genuinely cooperative, genuinely social, genuinely interested in peaceful interaction." She turned back to the window, watching Marcus as he scrolled through his device. "But underneath that, underneath the smiles and the politeness and the please and thank you, there's something else entirely. Something that evolution built to survive on a world that kills 99% of species before they develop written language." The communicator in my hand felt very heavy suddenly. "I'll make the call," I said. As I walked down the corridor toward a communication terminal, I heard the scanner beep one more time. Venthura's voice followed me, soft and stunned. "It just updated the classification suggestion for humans. Want to know what it says?" I stopped, not sure I actually wanted to know. "Recommended threat level, unknown. Recommended safety protocols, unknown. Recommended interaction guidelines, unknown." She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "The medical scanner, with access to 17,000 species worth of biological data, just told us it has absolutely no idea what to do with humans." I continued to the terminal, already composing the message to Commander Plex in my head. "How did you explain that the friendly aliens we'd been working alongside for 6 years might be the galactic equivalent of a bomb that hadn't gone off yet? Not because they were hostile, but because they were something the universe had apparently never seen before." Behind me, I heard Marcus start whistling, a cheerful tune, completely harmless. The scanner's display flickered one final time before going dark, as if it had given up entirely on making sense of human biology. I began typing the message, my manipulators trembling slightly. This was going to be a very long day. Commander Plex arrived with an entourage that would have been more appropriate for a diplomatic crisis than a routine medical screening. Security Chief Drax, all 3 meters of armored Krolex muscle, positioned himself outside the medical bay with 2 additional guards. Dr. Yenna Ferris, the station's chief xenopsychologist, clutched her analysis pad like a religious artifact. And trailing behind them all, looking thoroughly confused, came Ambassador Trilix from the diplomatic corps. "This better be worth pulling me out of negotiations with the Centauri trade delegation," Commander Plex said, his sensory stalks twitching with irritation. "Your message said we have a Category 5 biological anomaly. Do you have any idea what that classification is supposed to mean?" Venthura gestured toward the medical bay window. "See for yourself, Commander." Plex peered through the transparent aluminum, his stalks extending for a better view. Marcus had fallen asleep on the examination platform, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm that the medical monitors tracked with obsessive precision. "I see a human taking a nap," Plex said flatly. Admittedly unusual behavior during a medical exam, but hardly. "He's not napping," Venthara interrupted. "He's conserving energy. Watch his vitals." We all crowded around the external monitor. Marcus's heart rate had dropped to 38 beats per cycle. His respiratory rate had decreased proportionally. His brain activity showed theta wave patterns consistent with light sleep, but his muscular system remained in a state of partial tension, ready for instant activation. "That's a predator's rest state," Security Chief Drax rumbled, his secondary vocal cords adding a subsonic harmonic that made my bones vibrate. "Prey species don't sleep like that. Too vulnerable. They need full unconsciousness to properly rest." "Exactly," Venthara said, "but look at his stress hormone levels. Baseline. No elevation whatsoever. He's completely relaxed in an unfamiliar environment, surrounded by alien species, confined in a medical facility. Prey psychology would demand hypervigilance. Predator psychology would demand territorial assessment. He's doing neither. He's just resting efficiently." Dr. Ferris leaned closer to the screen, her optical sensors whirring as they focused. "May I see the full genetic analysis?" Venthara transferred the data to Ferris's pad. We waited while the xenopsychologist reviewed the findings, watching her facial chromatophores shift through several colors that I recognized as confusion, disbelief, and, finally, reluctant acceptance. "Well?" Commander Plex demanded. Ferris set down her pad with exaggerated care. "Human beings should not exist. I mean that literally. The psychological profile contradicts the physiological profile, which contradicts the evolutionary history, which contradicts the behavioral patterns. They possess the forward-facing eyes of a predator, the endurance physiology of a persistence hunter, the cooperative social structures of pack animals, and the tool-use intelligence we typically associate with scavenger species. But their threat response system is built like prey animals, complete with adrenaline surges that increase strength and speed by 30 to 40%. Prey animals don't get stronger when threatened," Ambassador Trilix pointed out, his translator struggling slightly with the concept. "They freeze or flee." "Exactly. Humans do both. They freeze, assess, then either flee at incredible speeds or fight with enhanced strength. Sometimes both, sometimes neither. Their decision-making process appears to be situationally dependent in ways we don't see in other species." Ferris pulled up a comparison chart. A Krolex warrior like Chief Drax has consistent threat responses: assess, then attack. Simple, predictable, effective. A Thanari like Dr. Venthara has equally consistent responses: assess, then evade or seek shelter. Also simple, predictable, effective. And humans? Humans assess, then do whatever they think will work best in that specific situation, drawing from a behavioral library that includes predator tactics, prey tactics, scavenger tactics, and several responses we don't even have names for because no other species does them. She highlighted a section of the genetic code. They have specialized neural architecture for throwing objects with precision. Do you understand how bizarre that is? Their brains have dedicated processing centers for calculating ballistic trajectories. What kind of evolution builds that? Persistence hunters, Drax said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The massive security chief was staring at Marcus with what I recognized as professional respect tinged with unease. On my homeworld, we have stories. Ancient tales from before we developed interstellar travel. Stories about the Death Runners, predators that don't chase you down in a burst of speed. They just follow forever. You run, they jog, you hide, they track, you fight, they back off and wait. Then they follow again until you collapse from exhaustion. Then they kill you. The medical bay suddenly felt much colder. Earth had several species that hunted that way, Venthara confirmed, pulling up the planetary assessment data. Wolves, African wild dogs, and humans. Humans most of all. They can run for hours in heat that would kill most predators. They can track prey for days across terrain that leaves no obvious trail. They can coordinate hunts using complex communication that adapts in real time to changing circumstances. And they did this before they developed modern technology, before projectile weapons, before agriculture. They ran animals to death across savannas under a sun that should have killed them first. Marcus stirred on the examination platform, rolling onto his side. The movement was smooth, controlled, completely unconscious. Even in sleep, his body moved with the efficiency of something built for survival. Commander Plex's sensory stalks drooped. So we have a species of persistence predators with prey animal neurology living on our stations, working in our facilities, integrating into our society. And we're only noticing this now? They're very good at seeming harmless, Ferris said. It's not deception exactly. Humans genuinely are cooperative and social. They form attachments easily, communicate openly, and prefer peaceful resolutions to conflicts. But Commander, that's not because they're inherently peaceful. It's because they calculated that cooperation produces better outcomes than competition. They made a choice. As a species, they chose civilization over violence. And they could choose differently, Drax finished. Theoretically. Though I should note that human psychology includes strong social bonding mechanisms and empathy responses that seem to actively discourage violence against perceived in-group members. They extend that in-group classification very broadly. If they consider you a friend, colleague, or ally, their protective instincts activate. They'll defend you aggressively. Ambassador Trilix, who had been silent throughout this exchange, finally spoke up. I work with humans daily. Marcus himself serves as a cultural liaison for the human contingent on this station. He's helpful, friendly, and genuinely interested in other species. Are you suggesting that's all an evolutionary adaptation to lower our guard? No, Ferris said firmly. It's genuine. That's what makes this so complicated. Humans are legitimately friendly. They really do want to cooperate. They honestly prefer peaceful solutions. But underneath that, they have the capability for extreme violence. They can switch from friendly to lethal in microseconds if they perceive a genuine threat. And their definition of threat includes threats to their social group, not just themselves. On the monitor, Marcus's eyes opened. Not the slow, groggy awakening of most species, just instant alertness, 0 to fully conscious without any transition period. He sat up, looked around the medical bay, checked the time on his device, and stretched. Should I wake him up? He called toward the observation window. Been about 40 minutes. Figured you'd come get me when you were ready. Venthara activated the communication panel. Yes, Mr. Webb, thank you for your patience. We'll be right in. She turned to Commander Plex. So, what do we do? The commander's stalks coiled and uncoiled, a gesture of deep uncertainty. What are our options? We could treat this as a security concern, Drax offered, though his tone suggested he wasn't enthusiastic about the idea. Increase monitoring of human personnel. Implement additional safety protocols. Based on what? Trilix challenged. They haven't done anything wrong. Humans have been model citizens of the galactic community. No aggression incidents, no territorial disputes, no predatory behavior toward other species. That we know of, Drax countered. No, Ferris said sharply. We would know. Human psychology isn't subtle. When they're stressed or uncomfortable, they display obvious tells. Increased fidgeting, changes in vocal patterns, alterations in facial expressions. Mr. Webb in there has shown none of those signs. He's genuinely relaxed, genuinely comfortable. He doesn't perceive us as threats or prey. He sees us as colleagues. Then what's the problem? Plex demanded. Venthora pulled up the full planetary assessment report, the one that had been filed 6 years ago when humans first made contact. The problem, Commander, is that someone made a mistake. Look at the original classification. The report designated Earth as a standard class M world, gravity within acceptable parameters, atmosphere composition unremarkable, biodiversity high but manageable, native sapient species rated as low-threat omnivores with advanced technological capabilities. Now look at the actual data, Venthora continued, pulling up the raw measurements. Earth's gravity, 1.3 times galactic standard. Atmospheric oxygen, 21%, nearly double most habitable worlds. Average temperature variation, 70 degrees between seasons. Weather systems capable of wind speeds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour. Tectonic activity, high. Volcanic activity, moderate but widespread. Native megafauna, abundant, diverse, and largely predatory. Whoever filed this report, Venthora said, her voice tight with controlled anger, looked at a death world and classified it as normal. They looked at a species that evolved to survive conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within days, and they marked them down as low threat. They committed the single biggest classification error in the history of the Galactic Assessment Bureau. Silence fell over the group. On the monitor, Marcus had gone back to looking at his device, occasionally glancing toward the window with polite curiosity. "So, what do we do?" Plex repeated, quieter this time. "We," Ambassador Trilix said slowly, "do nothing. Or rather, we do what we should have done from the start. We treat humans as what they are, a species with unique capabilities and characteristics that don't fit our established categories. We adjust our protocols. We update our databases. We acknowledge that the universe is more complex than our classification systems assumed. And we don't panic," Ferris added, "because here's what else the data shows. Human violence is almost always defensive or protective. Yes, they're capable of extreme aggression, but they're also capable of extreme compassion. They extend aid to other species. They form genuine friendships across biological boundaries. They cry at sad stories. They laugh at jokes. They're people, Commander. Complicated, contradictory, occasionally terrifying people, but people." Drax made a rumbling sound that might have been agreement. "My homeworld has a saying. The most dangerous warrior is one who prefers peace, because they understand the true cost of war. Maybe humans understand that cost better than most." Commander Plex's stalks finally settled into a position of decision. "All right, here's what we do. Dr. Venthora, you finish the medical screening. Standard protocols. Ambassador Trilix, you prepare a brief for the Council. Honest assessment, no panic-inducing language, but make clear we need updated interaction guidelines. Dr. Ferris, you start working on those guidelines. Chief Drax, no changes to security protocols unless Ferris recommends them, and everyone keep this quiet until we have a proper plan. The last thing we need is station-wide panic about the friendly humans." "Agreed," Venthora said. She straightened her medical coat and headed for the door. "Mr. Webb, sorry for the delay. Just had to consult with some colleagues about your test results." "No problem, Doc," Marcus said cheerfully as she entered. "Everything check out okay?" "Yes, actually. You're in excellent health. Very impressive cardiovascular system." "Thanks. I try to stay active." He hopped down from the platform with casual ease, landing from a height that would have stressed most species' skeletal systems. "So, am I cleared for duty?" "Absolutely. Welcome to Station Kepler 7, Mr. Webb." They shook hands, a human gesture that Venthora had learned. As their appendages clasped, I watched the medical scanner one more time. It displayed Marcus's grip strength, sufficient to crush most biological materials, controlled to apply exactly the pressure appropriate for a friendly greeting. Predator reflexes, prey awareness, social intelligence, tool-using creativity, all of it wrapped up in a package that genuinely wanted to be friends. Marcus left the medical bay with a friendly wave to everyone. Ambassador Trilix fell into step beside him, already chatting about the upcoming cultural exchange program. We watched them go down the corridor, the human and the Trill walking side by side, just two colleagues on a space station far from either of their homeworlds. You know what the really scary part is? I said to nobody in particular. Venthara looked at me. What? In 6 years, humans have integrated so completely into galactic society that we forgot to be curious about them. We just accepted them. They made it seem natural. I gestured toward the departing figures. That's not biological adaptation. That's not evolutionary instinct. That's intelligence. They understood how to fit in, how to seem non-threatening, how to make us comfortable, and they did it so well that we stopped asking questions. That's not scary, Ferris said softly. That's actually rather beautiful. They could have leveraged their advantages, could have intimidated or dominated. Instead, they chose to adapt, to learn to become part of something larger than themselves. She smiled, an expression her species reserved for moments of genuine appreciation. Yes, humans are dangerous, but they're also kind, and they chose kindness. That's not scary. That's hopeful. Commander Plex's stalks drooped in what might have been agreement or exhaustion. I need a drink. A strong one. Possibly several. Make it 2, Drax rumbled. I'll join you. As they walked away, Venthara and I stood alone in the corridor, watching the medical scanner reset itself for the next patient. You know, she said eventually, I spent 200 years studying xenobiology. I thought I understood the patterns, the rules, the categories. And now I know that Earth didn't just produce humans, it produced survivors. The kind of survivors who look at a galaxy full of species that evolved on easier worlds, and instead of resenting them for it, they just smile and say, Hi, wanna be friends? She paused, mandibles clicking in something like wonder. That's not scary. That's magnificent. The scanner beeped, ready for its next patient. Somewhere on the station, Marcus Webb was probably settling into his quarters, unpacking his belongings, maybe making plans to meet his new colleagues for dinner. Just another human, just another predator, prey pack hunter, scavenger thinker, survivor being friendly and polite and utterly impossible to classify. And somehow, I thought, that was exactly how it should be. The universe, it turned out, was bigger and stranger than our categories could hold. And humans were the proof. I headed back to my quarters, already composing my personal log entry for the day. How did you summarize discovering that your friendly neighbors were biological paradoxes? How did you explain that the thing you should fear had decided to be kind instead? Maybe you didn't explain it. Maybe you just accepted it, the way humans had accepted us. Maybe that was the real lesson. Not that humans were predators or prey or some impossible combination of both, but that they were adaptable enough to be whatever the situation required, including friends. The medical bay door sealed behind me with a soft hiss, leaving the mysteries of human evolution for another day. And somewhere on Station Kepler 7, Marcus Webb was probably already making someone laugh.